I saw a Ramban, and maybe I'd seen the Ramban before, but I certainly didn't remember it. You remember the end of Parshas Noach? It says that Yimei Terach, Avram Avinu is about to go to Eretz Yisrael, and the pasuk at the end of Noach says, "Beyu Yimei Terach Chamesh Shonim U'Masayim Shonim V'Yomas Terach Charon." So Terach lived to be 5 years and 200 years, 205 years, and he dies in Haran. However, all you have to do is a simple mathematical equation or calculation, and you'll find out that Taka is not dead. He's alive for more than 60 years after Avram Avinu goes to live in Eretz Yisrael. So the obvious question is, why does the Torah write it to suggest that Avram only left his father after his father had passed away? So Rashi brings two reasons which we'll all remember. Reason number one is because Terach was a Rasha. And from a Jewish hashkaf, from a Jewish philosophical perspective, a Rasha, even though he's living, walking about, signing checks, driving a car, he's dead. His life has got no value. There's no chiyus in his life, and therefore he's really dead. Another reason, he says Rashi, is in order not to have people know that Avram Avinu left his old father for 60 years on his own. They'll turn around and say, what's a frumer is that Avram Avinu? He left his father for 60 years, and he never had a kibbud av v'em. That's the Rashi. And Be'emes, we've talked about that, I don't know if you recall, in our shiur, when I've been here, discussed to be here before. But the Ramban says something which I didn't notice before. Listen to this. He says, according to Rashi, then Terach was a Rasha, and because of that, he's considered dead. Says the Ramban, how can that be the case? I'll read a little bit of Ramban to you. He says, Rashaim b'chaim korim mesim. Rashi says, Rashaim in their lifetime are called mesim. But that's a problem. Later on, the pasuk says that Hashem said to Avram Avinu, and you will come in shalom to your fathers. So whereas at the end of his lifetime, Avram Avinu is going to go to Shamayim and to his father. So hold on, is Terach a Rasha or is Terach not a Rasha? If he's a Rasha, what's he doing in Shamayim? How did he get there? So the Ramban says like this. So Besara Sheish La'ovin Chelek L'Olam Haba, says the Ramban clearly, it proves that his father Terach, the Rasha, is a Chelek L'Olam Haba. The Ulai. So maybe the reason that Chazal darshan this, you come to your father, that's Terach in Shamayim, Kavanosam Sha'osa Tshuva B'Shas Misa. At the end of his life, at the last possible moment, Terach did Teshuvah. That would make sense. Someone in my Talmidim Yeshiva asked me just this week, what's so bad about saying, Chovos always talks about this, clearly in Shar B'Tachim, what's so bad about saying, you know what, I'm going to enjoy myself now, and later on, then I'll frum up, then I'll take it seriously, then I'll do Teshuvah. Well, the obvious problem with that is, how do you know? How long do you anticipate that you'll live to? So David HaMelech says 70 years. Some people make it 80 years. These days it's longer, Baruch Hashem. But, so you'll say, okay, so let's work this out. 80? Okay. So therefore, at what point should I start doing Teshuvah? So I could have a really fun time for 60 years. Oh, but I'm not an idiot. I know that life doesn't go exactly as everybody calculates. So if we say that on average people live to 80, I'll do Teshuvah at 60. That should, 70 is too late because people get ill then. I'll wait, you know what, just to make absolutely sure, I'll do Teshuvah at 50. 50 is a good time to Teshuvah. That gives me, from now to 50, to have a gewaldige time. Right? Well, the obvious thing that's wrong with that argument is, who says you're going to get to 50? Suppose a truck hits you down tomorrow morning and you never get to 50. It's a ridiculous idea to think that you can work it out. I'll do Teshuvah later. How do you know you're going to have a later? But Kenzine, that Taka is possible. We know it works. And if a person does Teshuvah on their deathbed, it's a Teshuvah. So Kenzine, when the Pasuk says that Avram Avinu has promised he's going to come to Shamayim, and there he's going to have a gewaldige Shalom Aleichem from his daddy got to Shamayim, he did Teshuvah before his death. That would be answer number one. Are you happy? Kenzine. Answer number two, Oshema Yesh lo chelik l'olam haba. Maybe Terach got a chelik in olam haba. Not that he did teshuvah on his deathbed. He was a Rasha consistently. This fellow kept, he was true to his values his whole life. He was a complete Rasha. Mitzchad Seif. Chazal say, b'schus b'nai. Maybe that he got into Shamayim in the schus of his son. And when I saw that, I must admit I was scratching my head. How does that work? How could it possibly be that you get into Shamayim in the schus of your son? So you're a Rasha. In this pshat, in this explanation, then Terach has been from Mitchila ad Soif a Rasha. But he's still going to get to heaven because of his son. Does that make any sense? That's cheating, is it not? That strikes me as not fair. How could that possibly be the case? Well, let's consider for a second the relationship, the kesher that each of us has with the other and where that can take us. And Taka was preparing our shiur today in Yeshiva in Long Island, and I reminded myself of a Rabbi Dessler in the Chelik Dalet, page 193, which will knock, as they say, your socks off, assuming that you have socks. Anyway, so here, let me just work this through a little bit. What do other people do in our lives? Now, according to this Ramban, it could be so dramatic that somebody could get you into Shamayim, even if you're a Rasha. That would make it a very good idea to find out exactly how people could do that for you. But what else can people do for you? So I don't know if you heard, but there was a politician by the name of Hillary Clinton. Did you come across Hillary Clinton at all? Well, before November the 8th, you may have come across her. Since then, you've probably not heard anything about her. Sof kol sof. Hillary Clinton, I don't know if you know this, is a Machaba Svorim. Did you know this? Oh yes, Rabbi Sai, she wrote a book. She wrote a book, an autobiography, I think, about her life married to the president. Sof kol sof. She wrote this book. It was called "It Takes a Village." Are you familiar with that phrase? It takes a village. Okay, it takes a village. It comes from apparently it's an African expression, and the full expression is it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to raise a child. That means to say that you're not going to do that on your own. And Taka, any of us who've ever been involved in the pasha of raising children will know. As this is our poshet, Sargid al-Bonim, very often when people are asking me for advice about rebellious teenagers, you remember rebellious teenagers, rebellious teenagers, I often give them a very honest and serious, and I think very good piece of advice, which is that very often the worst possible person of all to be dealing with your son or your daughter is, thank you very much, is you. Right? Is you. For the very simple reason that you don't see your children objectively or clearly. Rabbi Dessler says, Apella de Gazach. Rabbi Dessler says, that points out, when Avram Avinu is looking for Shida for Yitzchak, who did he send to be the Shatman? Eliezer. Why didn't he go himself? This is the Lashon. He says, because Avram Avinu knew that when it came to his own son, he wasn't Avram Avinu. Every tat is getting the gears when it comes to his own son, and therefore you're not going to see anything wrong in your son, and therefore you'll get it all wrong when you're looking for a Shida, for this perfect child that you are the father of. So Avada, it's nicht as I posh it to raise a child. You need help. Sometimes it can be a teacher, sometimes it can be a rebbe, sometimes it can be a zayda or a baba. Sometimes a child even a teenage child has a relationship with a baba or a zayda that he doesn't have with a mother and a father. Fine. How big is the Jewish village that it takes to raise a child? So according to Chazal, 600,000. 600,000 live in this village. There were 600,000 Yidden that stood at Har Sinai to get the Torah. And everybody knows, and they're representing the wives and the children. If one had been missing when it came to Kabbalah Torah, in the same way, I saw the Hasidic Sefer once, in the same way, if one of the oisius of the Torah is missing or is fractured, broken in two, then the whole Sefer is possible. You tie it on the outside, you can't use it. Had one Yid been missing from Kabbalah Torah, then that would have meant that none of us would have got the Torah because Klal Yisrael was not shalom. You're only shalom with everybody else. If one had been missing, we wouldn't have got the Torah. So therefore, each Jew completes every other Jew. And Taka, we all know the famous story in the Gemara about the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva. So the Gemara talks about the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva. It famously says, Shnaim ese elav zugim Talmidim shahayoloi Rabbi Akiva. There's 12,000 pairs of Talmidim shahayoloi, there was to him, the Rabbi Akiva. And they all died at the exact same time between Pesach and Shavuos, which is why, of course, we have that period of Shtickle Avelis at Sfira Sa'imah. And why did they all die at that time? Shalom Nogo Koved Zelazah. They didn't give Koved one to the other. So that's the Gemara, which I know we all know off by heart. The problem with the Gemara is obvious. First of all, it says Shnaim Eser Elav Zugim Talmidim. Very strange logic. There was 12,000 pairs of Talmidim in Rabbi Akiva's yeshiva. What should it have said? 24,000. And then it says, so 12,000 pairs, Shahoyoloi the Rabbi Akiva. There was to him to Rabbi Akiva. Why not just say there was to Rabbi Akiva? What's the Shahoyoloi? And they all died at the exact same time between Pesach and Shavuos. Because they weren't given Koved one to the other. What does Koved mean? Koved a Torah. The Mashal says they didn't respect each other's Torah. So here's a very interesting zach. First of all, don't forget that the most famous teaching of Rabbi Akiva was V'ahavta l'recha kamecha. Second of all, what does it mean to not respect somebody's Torah? My Rosh Hashiva in Gateshead was somebody called Reb Leib Gurevitz, Zecher Tzadik Livracha. He was the son-in-law of Rabbi Eli Lapian, and Rabbi Eli said about Reb Leib Gurevitz, he was a walking Mesil Shesharim. A walking Mesil Shesharim. When he was nifter, there's a fellow who's still in Gateshead, called Reb David Shpiro, and he decided to bring out a kuntras for the Shloishim to, as it were, celebrate the life of Reb Leib Gurevitz. So he came to each of the younger light in the yeshiva to try and be malakit, to try and get a little bit of Reb Leib's Torah, the best things that they could remember. At the time I was learning Yoridea. However, I hadn't discussed very much halacha with Reb Leib, even though he was a Baal halacha. But I was able to tell him a very nice shtick Torah he said in the third Taisus in Kedusha. So he wrote this down, and off he went. But I'm only telling him a shtick of people. Then he would go to somebody else who Taka had learned halacha with him, and he would say over some halacha. Somebody else would say some hashkav, somebody else musar. If all the Talmidim come together, then obviously what they're going to do when they bring out that kuntras is portray a fair representation. You'll get a gefeel of what Reb Leib Gurevitz was. Does that make sense? But if somebody decides not to contribute, suppose the Baal Halacha says, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to tell you what he said. For whatever reason, I want to keep it secret. When the kuntras comes out, you're missing an essential element of who Reb Leib Gurevitz is. Make sense? Oibel Zoya comes out of this. If they didn't respect each other's, didn't have Koved, didn't respect each other's Torah, that means by definition, they're missing the point entirely. And when did they miss the point? Between Pesach and Shavuos. And that was good for the time when Klal Yisrael would stand, Ki ish echod, b'leiv echod, at Har Sinai, 600,000 male Jews, each one mashlim the other. Because you're only a chelik of the whole. And if it's the case that you're a bigger chelik than Yenim, that you're bigger than the other guy, that's gewaldig. But he still has a part to play. And if you don't get that message between Pesach and Shavuos, then that means you cannot carry, not Reb Leib Gurevitz, but you can't carry Rabbi Akiva to the next generation. Shnaim ese elav zugim talmidim shoya laila Rabbi Akiva. That's how he built his yeshiva. That's how he built his yeshiva. If you don't respect somebody else, if you don't think somebody's important, you're making an enormous mistake. Everybody knows the famous Gemara in Bava Basra, Daf Yud, where the son dies, he goes to Shamayim, and his father said when he comes back, because they bring him back to life, what did you see? Ma're'isi. What did he say? Olam hafach re'isi. I saw an upside down world. The people here are considered to be very choshev. In Shamayim, they're down there. The people who are down here in this world, they're high up in Shamayim. Who says who's choshev? When I'm actually quite ashamed to tell you this, but when my late wife passed away some 13 years ago, in Manchester, and when it came the time to get married again, which incidentally was at the tzava of my late wife. 3 days before she was nifteres, she told me, she made me promise I'd marry again, and even made the shidduch. But still, everybody knows, I think, that second marriages, as the Gemara says, kashin zevugan sha'odam k'kriyas yamsuf, so it's difficult for Hashem to make a shidduch as it was for him to split the Red Sea. And what Gemara is talking about is second marriages. A second marriage is much more difficult than the first marriage. And particularly the children find it extraordinarily difficult to deal with the fact that, there's a replacement mummy, there's a replacement daddy, even though that's the right thing to do, but they find it very difficult. I have to tell you, much to my enormous shame, that many of the people I thought who were friends of mine, and I thought would be very supportive and help, were not. Other people, not just the children, some people could not deal with the fact that I was getting remarried. And other people whom I had, and this is the shameful bit, not the greatest opinion of, not dislike them, I didn't think they were, very choshev. Though surprisingly from that particular group of people, that's where the greatest support came to help us get through this new, difficult crossing of our life, a second marriage. Who's to say who's important? It might be you're the greatest Talmid Chacham in the world, and that means to say that you know much more. One Talmid Chacham is bigger than another Talmid Chacham. You can still be Talmid Chacham, but he knows more than you. Fine, but you still know something. Moshe Rabbeinu is, what's the greatest meat of Moshe Rabbeinu? An Evis. Moshe Rabbeinu is an Onav. How much of an Onav? Well, all we have to do is look in the Torah, because he wrote it. V'ha'ish Moshe Onav mikol Adam Asher. It does sound a little bit funny, doesn't it? And Moshe Rabbeinu was the humblest man who ever lived. It sounds a bit strange, until you realize that for Shtetzach, falseness is something which the Torah finds horrible under all circumstances, including false modesty. False modesty is also, if you've been given gifts and talents, and you deny them, falsely, you're denying them to the people Hashem wants you to share them with. If somebody says to me, can you give a shiur to 1,000 people? And I say, me? Oh, I don't know. That's nonsense. I do this for a living. Oh, that's how you can really tell. People pay me for it, okay? So you've been given a gift. That means you're supposed to share it with somebody, and you're denying it. That's false modesty. Moshe Rabbeinu knows precisely and exactly where his koichas lie. Moshe Rabbeinu, who wrote the most modest man ever lived, are you the greatest Jew who ever lived? Okay. Moshe Rabbeinu, do you think you could run Klal Yisrael, not just a shul? If you've ever been close to the rov of a shul, it's not an easy job. Imagine controlling Gans Klal Yisrael for 40 years. Yeah, I can do that. Can you take on Parai? Easy peasy. Can you take Klal Yisrael from Israel? I think so. How about getting us the time? Yeah, I can do all that. Where is there room left for Anibus? So that's what I'm saying. If Moshe Rabbeinu was to walk in here now, he would look around and see in you koichos that he doesn't have, talents that he doesn't have. And because I'll say the fact that no two faces are the same indicates that no two neshamas are the same, no two koichos are the same. There's never been a yid like you on the planet before, nor will there ever be one just like you again. Moshe Rabbeinu saw qualities in you that he didn't have, and that allowed him to be modest. So everybody's got koichos, and the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva failed to understand that. If you fail to understand that, boy, are we in trouble. And I remember I was once walking, I was Skyping my son in Yerushalayim, my oldest son lives there. I was Skyping today, I remember in the Sever Kisisa. We're walking along the road in Manchester to a show called the Oil Tower. It was a rainy Manchester day. That's 364 days of the year. And middle of the summer, grey, overcast, and raining. And walking to Shom Shabbos, and we're talking about the Seder, counting Yidden. And so everybody knows, Rasha explains, Apostle says, you shouldn't, when you count Yidden, don't do it directly. You've got to do it indirectly. Everybody gives a what? A chatzi shekel. Why not a whole shekel? And again, that's what I'm saying, because you only give half because you take 2 to make the whole shekel. Again, it's the 2. It's the joining together. That's the etzem nature of Klal Yisrael, when you join together. So, give a chatzi shekel. And if you count Klal Yisrael directly, which we don't do, then, Rahman al-Islam, terrible things, dever, horrible things comes to Klal Yisrael, which is why, what happened, says Rashi, when David HaMelech counted Klal Yisrael. When he counted Klal Yisrael, along came a terrible disease and got the Yidden, and my son asked, Binyamin Zev, so Zayngus Stark, asked the obvious question. Why should the Yidden get the disease because David HaMelech counted them? He should get the disease. He did something wrong. Why should we get punished? Obvious question, no? So the Dubna Magid I'd just been learning the night before, Sefer Ol Yankov, and he gave an answer which I thought was extremely good. He gives a moshel. Well, the Dubna Magid would give a moshel, of course. The Dubna Magid says that this, and it's also a halacha. It's not just a moshel, it's also a halacha. Suppose you have some construction material in your backyard, and you've got some bricks and some timber, and I want to make an extension to my home. So I sneak in, and I steal your bricks and your timber. And I build the extension of my home, including your bricks and your timber. And you somehow or other you know that I've stolen this. You've got the camera, the security camera, and you see me sneaking away, okay? But I've already built the house, or the extension to the house. You cannot, al pi halacha, demand that I knock down the extension in order to get it back. But if I extend my extension, I'm very Jewish, if I build an extension to my extension, and now I'm taking down the wall and the bricks, and the stones are lying there, or the bricks and the wood are lying there, and somehow or other you're able to identify your bricks, then you can ask for it back. That's the halacha. You with me? Yes? Oh. So to take the bricks out the wall will spoil the wall. You can't do that. So he says, there can be a door, there can be a time when Klal Yisrael are really all not very good. Good doiros and bad doiros. And each individual Jew really deserves punishment for things that he or she has done wrong. Aber for Hashem to take them out of Klal Yisrael would leave a gaping hole in the wall and spoil the rest who don't deserve that. Therefore, as long as you're a member of Klal Yisrael, a brick in the wall, there is protection by being part of the structure. Does that make sense? With me? But what do you do when you count somebody? Isn't counting individualization? 1 Jew, 2, 3, 4. And of course, that's why we don't count directly. We count indirectly with the posuk. Many psukim which get 10 words in them. I like, because I come from Britain, I like to use Shakespeare. To be or not to be, that is the question, which I think is really quite good. What do you think? Yeah. So do we have a minion or not? To be or not to be? That's the question. 10 words. Okay, you can do it that way, but you mustn't count the Yidden directly, because then you're taking away that Jew away from Klal Yisrael by the act of counting. And anything that he might deserve to get, he's protected because he's a member of Klal Yisrael. So the Yidden together are mashlim each other, they complete each other, as we did at Har Sinai, and we also protect each other. And I've got to tell you something amazing, absolutely amazing from the Shem Mishmur. Shem Mishmur says, over here, for those watching at home, I'm sorry. So the Shem Mishmur says an amazing thing. You know in Parshas Nesovim, in Nesovim it says the Klal Yisrael are standing there in front of Hashem Yisborach, and this is the last bris that we're entering into. Atem Nesovim Yom Kulchem Lefnei Hashem Elokechem. You're all standing here, all of you in front of Hashem, Roshechem, your heads, Shiftechem, your tribes, Ziknechem, your elders, Shatrechem, your officers, called Is Yisrael. Well, hold on, call Is Yisrael, Kulchem. The Alshich says, if the Pasuk says you're all standing here, automatically that is Roshechem, Shiftechem. What's the saying that for? So he says to Peladik Azach, and already, you know this, because I'll say this, it wasn't just the people who were standing there, the last covenant, the last promise deal, if you like, between Klal Yisrael and Hashem Yisborach in that generation, but all future generations. So you and I were there as well. But the Alshach brings the Lashon, the Medrash, who says it was all the generations, not just the ones to come, but the ones who'd been. The Roshechem refers to the Roshim of Klal Yisrael, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Shiftechem, Reuven, Shimon, Levi, and Yehuda. And that's astonishing. I get it, that I was there and you were there because we were being shown that that's our Yerusha. We're going to be part of this. We've got a covenant. But the people, the doyers that had gone before, they're gone. What are they doing there? Get the question? Does that make sense? So this is what Shem Shmuel says. I was actually in a hotel over Sukkot in Florida, just showing off, and I brought my Shem Shmuel with me, and I found this. I don't know why I turned there, but I just found a little note, and I've been looking for this for years. It's very difficult to find things in the Shem Shmuel. It's not very. So far, nobody's sort of like set it out in a way which is easy to access. And he says an astonishing thing. Listen to this. He says, "V'nir lefarash tehini harambam." The Rambam says, Perish Mishnayos, the end of Makkos, because of the im odam mekayim mitzvah achas b'shleimus. If somebody is mekayim just one mitzvah b'shleimus, arihu ben olam haba. You get to go to olam haba. So says the Rambam. The Shem Shmuel says, what is he talking about? There are tari ag mitzvahs, 248 do's, 365 don'ts. They parallel parts of the goof. And each part of your goof is used for that particular mitzvah. The mitzvah is mashlim that part of the goof. What's he talking about? One mitzvah b'shleimus, then you get to go to Olam Haba. So he says an incredibly interesting thing which solved my problem. This is an interesting thing. He called Yisrael Heim Koma Shlema. Just as we've been saying. Gans Klal Yisrael, we're one binyan. Ve'im al yidei kulam. And together, what happens is, as long as you're a part of Klal Yisrael, I mean, think about this, Rabbi Say. We can't do all Tariq mitzvahs, can we? Of course we can. Some of the mitzvahs apply to kings. Some of the mitzvahs apply if you live in Eretz Yisrael. Lots of them apply living in Eretz Yisrael. Some mitzvahs apply to Kohanim, some to Levim, some to women, some to men, some to Gerim, some to Ezrachim. And unless you're all of that, which nobody is all of that, then you can't do all the mitzvahs. But as long as you're part of Klal Yisrael, you're that brick in the wall, then the whole of the structure of Klal Yisrael applies to you. Do you get this idea? And that means if there's a mitzvah that I can't do, as long as Yenim is doing it, and I'm a chelik of him, I'm part of the binyan, then Givaldik, then I get to be in his schus to be able to do it as well. But the Chidush the Shem Shmuel says, I'm going to read this to you, it's very exciting. And maybe the people already menifter, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah, and the Shvatim, they get to be joined with the rest of Klal Yisrael who are doing mitzvahs even beyond the grave. Even beyond the grave. Do you get this? So that's why Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov would be there. Because there's lots of mitzvahs that Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov could not do. First of all, they're not mitzvah to do them. So the quality of doing a mitzvah when you're not a mitzvah isa is very different to doing it when you are a mitzvah isa. So now that they are mitzvah, they join together, even though they're dead, to Klal Yisrael who are in that door, then the other Yidden who are doing the mitzvahs passes not just to you and I, throughout our generation, that is horizontally, but vertically in both directions. Are you with me? So Rabbi Dessner, in Michtam Eliyahu, brings up an astonishing Gemara, and the Gemara is talking about, I told you before, it's from page 193, in Chelik Dalet. And it's about somebody called Acher. And they all know Acher is the great heretic, the great rebel of the Gemara. And that's extraordinarily difficult. There's a lot, because I should have another shiur maybe next time I come, and how Acher went off the derech. This is something which troubles us a lot today. Why do kids go off the derech? It's an epidemic. We all know it's profoundly painful for us. Whether you live, I actually don't know, but Muncie, but certainly Lakewood's got hundreds of kids off the derech. Brooklyn's got hundreds and hundreds of kids off the derech. Eretz Yisrael is talking very, very schwer. And this is something which upsets us a great deal. But the fact that Acher, Elisha ben Avua, the teacher of Rebbe Meir, went off the derech, that's really quite a challenge. So, the question really is, what happened? That we'll talk about another time. I'd rather want to know about what happened after he went off the derech. What happened after he died? What happened after he died? So listen to this. So there's a brisa. The brisa is the Chagiga Tezvav Amud Beis. Genoch Nashi Da'acha Amri. So after he died, Rashi says in Shamayim, they turned around and said, he can't go, I'll say quickly outside so don't keep me too long. He can't go to Shamayim because he was a Rasha. He was a big Apikoros. But he can't go to Gehenna because he learned Torah. Because he learned Torah and he taught Torah. So says the Gemara. So they couldn't put him anywhere, he's a bit stuck. Along came Rabbi Meir, and Rabbi Meir says, I'm going to do something to help. I'm going to do something to help. And when he starts to do something to help, smoke comes out of the kever. Where do you think he was if smoke's coming out? Where do you think Acher it now is now located if smoke's coming out the kever? Can you guess? Right? Yeah, roast and toast, okay? He's now in Gehenna. And then Rabbi Yochanan comes along and says, is that the best we can do for him? Is that really the best? I can take him out of Gehenna. And he takes him out of Gehenna. And he gets to Shamayim. This is exactly what we were talking about at the beginning of the shiur, when the Ramban says that Terach Taka was a Rasha his whole life, and how could it be that when Avraham Avinu gets to Shamayim, there's his tata waiting for him? He was a Rasha his whole life. Answer number one, which is easy to give, no, you know what? He did tshuva at the last minute on his deathbed. I get that. Answer number two was the one that we had the headache about. No, he got there in the schus of his son. Mystery. What does that mean? And here's another one. So we're saying that Elisha ben Avua was take a Rasha, but somebody can get him, Rabbi Yochanan, not just to have the schus to get to Gehenna. That's the schus, Rabbi say. It's a schus to get to Gehenna, but also can actually get him to Shamayim. So let's talk about that and see how that works. So this is what Rabbi Desta says. I mean, I think you all know this. The person that you are, and some people put it very cleverly or simply by saying, that who you are, that is your Gehenna. That's what makes you either welcome what comes next or not. L'moshel. I once heard this from a Rebbitzin called Rebbitzin Sibora Heller. She gave a very nice moshel. It's based on the Rabbi Dessler. Imagined a lady who was a completely vapid lady. She's interested just in gashmias. There's no ruchnis in her life at all. She just, has a nice, comfortable life, a rich husband somewhere, a couple of nice pieces of plastic which she can use at her convenience. She gets up in the morning, and the first thing she does is say goodbye to the kids because the maid is taking the kids to school. Next thing, what does she do? Next thing, of course, she gets dressed, and then her personal trainer comes. And then she exercises, and the next thing she does is go for coffee with her girlfriends and have some enjoyable Lashon Hara. And then after that, what's the next thing she's going to do? She asked the Talmidah she was giving the shiur to. Somebody said shopping. Shopping, of course, retail therapy. What does she want to buy? A purse. A Gucci purse. Gucci is quite posh, Rabbi say. You probably don't know that, but of course, I do. Anyway, so she goes to the shopping mall, and in her BMW, and she gets out of the car, presses the button, beep, and she takes 3 steps. Another lady coming to buy something in the shopping mall comes round the corner. Her BMW smashes into her, Yiskadal v'Yiskadash. Okay? Very sad story. What did the lady want 3 seconds before she was knocked down and killed? A Gucci handbag. What does the lady want 3 seconds after she's knocked down and killed? A Gucci handbag. Nothing changes when you're nifta. The person you are that you take upstairs is the person you take upstairs. If you're somebody magushim, very magushim dika person, then that is the person you take upstairs. Which is why such people, when they see their body in the kever decomposing, then it gives them tremendous tsar. Because their physical being, that's their zayn, that's their whole being. Whereas Chazal say that taking the neshama up to Shamayim is like drawing a hair from milk. Just nothing, garnish at all. So, for a Rosh, they get a lot of pain when they see the body in the kever. Then, there is people who go to Gehenna. Gehenna is a tikkun. Don't make any mistakes. Gehenna is not a punishment. At least if you understand the punishment is you're going to suffer for what you did wrong. You're going to make yourself suffer for what you did wrong. But Hashem's not making you suffer for the sake of suffering. Gehenna is a tikkun. Because when you're in Gehenna, then it brings you to realize exactly what you are and what you should be, and that's very, very painful. It's not fire. I made a joke about that. You can only burn when you're physical. There's no physical. But it's like fire. It's painful as fire. That's something called kafakela. Kafakela is when the neshama can't get yet to Gehenna. It is so magushimdik. It's so stuck in the taivas of Olam Hazeh that it simply can't get to heaven. Get to Gehenna, where there's a possibility of tikkun. So I'll read a bit of Rabbi Desta to you. So listen to this. So he says, Sha'afal pikein, nefesh Rasha. If you get the nefesh of a Rasha, adayin redefes achri hergol tavosa ve'ein loy menuach. Then when the Rasha dies, it wants to do the same things it's always been doing. But it still wants to buy the Gucci handbag and the znus and the gaiba and the taiva and all the sorts of things that are wanted down here. That's the person that took upstairs, so that's what it wants. But over lots of time, this is the kafakelanik, hataivas mishachachas, he starts to forget his taivas la'at. And after you have slowly given up all your desire to be in this world, then you're so lucky, then you can go to Gehenna. We'll let you in. Because the idea is, because then you'll recognize and you'll understand in that place exactly who and what you really are. Gehenna is a complete vacuum of any ruchnius. But what are you when you're just a neshama? Ruchnius. Maybe I shouldn't tell you this. I scuba dive. You know that sort of glug, glug, glug underneath, right? And one of my last scuba dives, I haven't done it for a couple of years, one of my last scuba dives, I'm a licensed scuba diver, was in Miami. And because they made a miscalculation of body weight and stuff like that, when they gave me the equipment, I was running out of air when I was underneath the sea, about 70 feet down. Now, when you're running out of 70 feet underneath the Atlantic, what do you want to be able to do more than anything else in the world? Can you guess? Word beginning with B.
Breathe.
Breathe! Right? Because that's what I need. I don't have gills. What I need is air! Right? And I just got there, just to know more. Right? You appreciate that stuff. When you're nifta and you're reduced to being completely ruchnius, then you want to be in a ruchnistic place where you can breathe. That's there. But if you have fallen out of connection with your ruchnius, they'll put you in a place where there's no ruchnius. And then, just like you want air, you want ruchnius. It brings you back to your source. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, let's read on with the Rabbi Desta a little bit. So he says, then, when you, Liras Ba'ar HaGadol or Bohir, we see clearly when you're in Gehenna, it's Eitzim Chetza Shemorad Neged Boirav, how you have reduced yourself, you spoiled yourself, by rebelling against Hashem, and you regret it terribly. And there's nothing like regret for giving you a lot of pain, as I think we have to go down there to know that. You regret like crazy. You spent your whole life looking for stuff, wanting stuff, hoping for stuff that's garbage, total nonsense. Anything that Hashem wants, that's hevel. So therefore he says, if you're a Rasha, and that is your perspective, but now you're in Gehenna, and it brings it back to you what you should be, and you've been a Rasha, but tikkun yesh boy, there is a tikkun for you in Gehenna. Because it can burn away the averos that you've done. Imrak Asa b'chayav katsas mitzvahs u'maisim tovim. If you've just done a little bit, you're a Rasha. But if you've done just a little bit of mitzvahs u'maisim tovim, bli paniyas el nishma lagamri, sincerely, really wanted to do it. Mi'ata me'eres menashe nekudas elu shel panimis v'zoicha behen lahonas miziva shchina. Then it brings it home to you. You're aware of it. There's something to, there's something to grab onto. You know what it's about. And those mitzvahs you've done, now that you've burned away all the rishus, there's just left is the mitzvahs and the ma'asim tovim that you've done. That can get you into Shamayim. You got all rid of the rest. Now you get into Shamayim. Fine. Because you realize, Rabbi Isai, that what you were down here, what you filled yourself up with down here, was garbage. But suppose it wasn't. Suppose you're a Talmud Chochem and you're a Rasha. Suppose you're a Talmud Chochem and you're a Rasha. Like Elisha ben Avua, like Acher. Aber Rasha shalom and Torah harbe. But a Rasha has learnt lots and lots of Torah. Magam im nasa godel b'Torah. Okay, he's become a godel b'Torah. This is a very uncomfortable subject to talk about. Imagine a Welt's gone who's a Rasha. Although Klal Yisrael has seen many of them during our history. Doeg Adoni, the head of Shaul's Beis Din. They say that from the time of Moshe Rabbeinu to Doeg, nobody was a greater Talmud Chacham than Doeg. But he was a Rasha. Lo yochel lekanos leGehenim. He can't get into Gehenna. Gehenna is a cure. It's a tikkun. It's a hospital. But he's not going to get in. Why? Because the Torah that he's learned, which was real Torah, even if he didn't do it for the right reasons, that's real, that's part of him. The Roshas only get rishas, but he's got good stuff there as well. So therefore, Gehenna's not going to work, except if you see somebody, says Rabbi Dessler, somebody who was like you, went through your experiences, but was a real tzaddik, a Talmud Chochem was a tzaddik, then in comparing you with him, then you turn around and regret that if only I could have been like him. That was Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir said, I can get my Rebbe to Gehenna. Gewaldig! I can get my Rebbe to Gehenna. And guess what? Smoke started to come out of the cavern. Wow! Elisha ben Avua's got to Gehenna. But Rabbi Yochanan said there's something even better than that. I can get him to Shamayim. What was the difference between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yochanan? Rabbi Yochanan, so he's got to the bottom here, Rabbi Yochanan Kibul mi Rebbe, that Rabbi Yochanan was a Talmud of Rebbe, and Rebbe was the Talmud of Rabbi Meir, and Rabbi Meir was a Talmud of Acher. So we're talking about a certain amount of distance between the two. Now this is very interesting. So if it is the case that you are the sort of person who was like him, like Rabbi Meir was like his Rebbe, Elisha ben Avua, and Elisha ben Avua sees him and realizes, whoa, I could have got to his Madriga, then that allows his heart to open up, regret properly, even though he's a Talmud Chacham. But his Talmud Chacham kite never reached its fruition the way that his did. That causes regret, and therefore the Gehenna starts to work for him. But he says there's another type of way to solve this problem. You see, there's an interesting thing. How close can you get? How close would you advise? Here's a good question. How close would you advise your teenage son to get to his Rebbe who'd gone off the derech? I don't know if such a thing ever happened in Muncie, but imagine you had a Rebbe who was a big Talmud Chacham, and suppose he had lots of Talmidim, and suddenly he becomes a Rasha. Mamish becomes a Rasha. But he's full of Torah. And incidentally, Rabbi said, don't forget that we still quote Rabbi Elisha ben Avua in Pirkei Avos. We still learn from him. That's before he went off the derech. Would you encourage your son to go and learn with this fellow? I don't think so. What was the relationship between Rabbi Meir and Acher? Rabbi Meir still learned from him, but he had to set up barriers to make sure that he wasn't badly influenced by him. That means that there can't be a complete comparison between the two. Move that back a couple of generations till you come to Rabbi Yochanan, who is a direct disciple, Talmud after Talmud, from him. It's not such a problem that he can have an influence on him. Suppose you're Rebbe, and you don't just see somebody who was like me and didn't become a Rasha, but suppose you see 2 or 3 generations, somebody who's a Talmud of mine, because there's a Talmud of my Talmud's Talmud, And look what he achieved. How much more is that going to be able to bring you to Teshuvah? And much more Rabbi Yochanan is able to establish that link between the two neshamas that Rabbi Meir could not do, because Rabbi Meir would be scared, they'd be influenced. In the same way as you wouldn't want your teenage son to talk to the Rebbe who'd gone off the derech. Rebbe and Rabbi Meir are too close. But Rabbi Yochanan's further apart. And if it's the case, here's the crucial words, that there is a kesher, a strong kesher between the Talmud and the Rebbe, Rabbi Yochanan, and Elisha ben Nevuah, I can get into Shamayim. And the smoke stopped coming out of the kever, and Taki got into Shamayim. This is Pelagic. So let's go back to the original question we started with. Our original question was, how can it possibly be that Terach is a Rosh Gomer, never did tshuva at all in his life, but in the schus of Avraham, he gets into Shamayim? Not just because I had a son who was a tzaddik. I had a son who was a tzaddik that when I was nifter, and when I got to Gehenna, I saw somebody who I realized in Gehenna, when all the rishis burned away, can inspire me. If only I was like him. Then there's real charata that kicks in, real regret, and when real regret kicks in, a person starts to grow and climb out of Gehenna and get straight to Shamayim, so that when Avram Avinu gets there, his Tata's waiting to say, Shalom Aleichem, and thank you very much for getting me here. You caused me to do Teshuvah in Gehenna. That's how I got to Shamayim. Wish you all a good Shabbos.